Hello everyone, my name is Leah Hollins and I will be giving a screencast today intended for a middle school, specifically 6th grade science class. I hope you find this very informative and happy learning. So today we're going to talk about ecological relationships. An ecological relationship is a relationship between an organism and its ecosystem. And just as a reminder, an ecosystem is any community of living and non-living things that work together. All organisms in an ecosystem are connected in one way or another. Let's think about what a food web looks like. Although food webs only show eating relationships, we can still see how many organisms can be connected in their environment. To go along with this presentation, I have also created a note guide. Feel free to pause the video and copy it down or simply screenshot it and print it out. So first, let's start with the objectives for today. Today I will learn the important physical factors in the environment of animals and plants, how plants and animals differ due to their environment, how to identify producers, primary consumers, and predators, and how to sort or classify animals into groups. Also, I'll learn about the different habitats organisms live in, how to describe the environment of different habitats, and about the special adaptations that organisms have to help them live in their habitat. But let's start with some review too. Before we learn something new, let's go over what we know. So, in order for an animal to survive, it needs a food source, a water source, and shelter. Here are some visuals I've created to help jog your memory. I just thought they were cute. And also, let's not forget plants. Plants are very important, so think about what plants need to have in order to survive. So today's lesson will cover a lot of important terms, but some key words that we need to remember are habitat, environment, adapted, adaptation, producer, consumer, and predator. Now let's talk about an important part of ecological relationships, an organism's habitat. What is a habitat? The habitat is the place where an organism lives. And remember, different organisms live in different habitats. Can you name some organisms from each of the following habitats in these slides? A pond. A pond can have many organisms, but just to name a few, they include frogs, turtles, algae, various fish and aquatic plants, salamanders, insects, crayfish, and snails, just to name a few. How about in a woodland or a forest? Woodlands and creatures include spiders, mice, chipmunks, squirrels, deer, insects and beetles, bears, mosses, various trees, turtles, foxes, and the list goes on. And now let's think about some in the sea. Sea creatures and organisms include sea otters, sharks, dolphins, jellyfish, plankton, crab, squid, octopus, lobster, coral, and of course, fish. These are also known as environment. The word environment is used to describe what a habitat is like, the physical, chemical, living and non-living factors of where an organism lives. Now, some organisms have adapted to live in certain environments, and these are called adaptations. Adaptations are important modifications or changes that make an organism better suited for its survival. Adaptations help them survive in their habitat. Now let's look at what I have on this screen. We have a camel, a giraffe with a very long neck. Why might that be? To reach the tall leaves in the African savannas, and then we'll talk about the camels in more detail later. There are three different types of rabbit up here, or hare. They have the Arctic hare, and then a jackrabbit, and then a normal. Just look at the differences, but they're all the same animal. Moving on. So what animal or animals might live here in the desert? Well, many of you probably thought of camels. The desert is hot and dry, but at least you don't get bothered by people. But how can a camel live in such a dry, hot place? Well, adaptations. There are several adaptations they have in order to live in the desert. Their hump stores fat, which they are able to draw upon for water. They have webbed feet, which prevent them from sinking in the sand. They can close their nostrils, and they have double row of eyelashes to keep sand out. They endure long periods of time without drinking. They drink a lot. They can take in 30 gallons at a time. And they produce dry feces and little urine, which allows them to conserve water. And also their body temperature can rise several degrees before sweating, which helps conserve water too. Okay, now who lives in this cold place? Polar bears. Polar bears have made adaptations such as being very good swimmers in order to catch their prey like seals and fish. Their front paws are adapted for swimming. Their thick layer of fat acts as insulator and keeps them warm. Their small ears reduce heat loss, so keeping them warm again. And their thick fur keeps them warm and acts as a camouflage. There are also other adaptations besides what we've discussed, such as camouflage, mimicry, migrations, beak shape, certain behaviors like a possum may play dead when it is threatened, and fish swimming in schools because there are safety in numbers. And disguises are also examples. For a more specific example, we have the viceroy butterfly here, mimicking the coloration and patterns of the bad-tasting monarch butterfly. It is very hard to tell these apart if you're not sure on what they are. This adaptation helps the tasty viceroy to survive, and predators such as birds will not eat the viceroy because they think it is the monarch. So really, birds will avoid eating the butterflies altogether. So how's that for adaptations increasing survival? And lastly, who eats who? Let's start at the beginning with the producer, grass. Grass is a producer because it makes its own food through photosynthesis, which I will leave for another lesson. But cows, which are known as primary consumers. Cows are herbivores, and they eat producers, which is what a primary consumer is. And the answer to the other cow's question is, of course, humans, but in some places, wolves, wild dogs or dingoes, coyotes, lions, leopards, and sometimes even grizzly bears are the predators of cows. A predator is simply an organism that preys on others. Now let's take a quick look at food chains and food webs. Food chains and webs are very useful to us. They allow us to see the producer and consumers within an ecosystem. They also help us to easily identify herbivores, plant eaters, omnivores, which we eat both plant and animals, and carnivores, which just eat animals. Several food chains can be put together to make a food web. A food web can show us several of the ecological relationships between living and non-living organisms in an ecosystem. So to sum it all up, let's review what we've learned again, our objectives. Today I have learned the important physical factors in the environment of animals and plants, how plants and animals differ due to their environment. We've learned about adaptations, how to identify producers and primary consumers and predators, how to start to classify animals into groups, using our primary consumer, those as labels. I've also learned about the different habitats organisms live in, how to describe the environment of different habitats, and about how special adaptations that organisms have helped them to live in their environments. Now, thank you for listening to my screencast, and I hope it was very informative for you. This PowerPoint was taken from World of Teaching, but it was also edited by Leah Hans. Tune in next time.